are you, Divyani ma'am?
Good evening. I'm good. Meet Anuradha ma'am. Meet Nitina.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening,
Good
Nitya ma'am.
evening. Good
Good evening,
evening.
Anuradha ma'am.
Evening, Ruchika.
I'm sure, I mean, with so much of intellectual property on this platform at one point of time, I'm sure this is going to be, and believe me, I'm just not saying it for the show. This is really going to be very insightful and very, very informative for everyone. Do we have Sudhir, Mr. Sudhir Katumala?
Checking, ma'am.
Good evening, Sudhir.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. Good evening, very good evening. Yes, sorry for the delay.
No problem. We still have 1 minute to go. Good evening, Ria.
Good evening,
Hello,
ma'am.
Ria.
Good evening.
Really happy to have you back here on this platform.
Ma'am, it's my pleasure to be here.
And you're sharing the platform with, so esteemed academicians, principals, counselors.
Yes, ma'am, definitely a pleasure.
Yeah, all right. So yes, Team Edudevs, can we begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Children are considered to be the future, and their growth is significant for the betterment of society and if we want to build a strong nation. You see, a very, very critical role in this direction then is played by the educational institutions, that is more specifically schools. They are not just institutions that impart academic education, but they are gradually gaining a much wider role to play. The role of a school in child's life is manifold, that we all know, ranging from practically transforming their personalities as they become very timid and shy, and then they go on taking this, venturing the uncharted skies, personalities, to grooming them for a later life, helping them gear up to a dynamic future. And this brings us to a talk about our today's topic, profile building, which has become a really trending India. You see, where Indian universities base their admission process on the performance in exams, now whether they are board exams or yet another exam like CUET, foreign universities follow a more holistic approach in their selection process. Well, this is just a general statement. What is the truth in it? And how does the process work? Let us check it out from our esteemed panel of today. We are here to discuss and deliberate upon our topic of futuristic education, the role of schools in shaping a student's profile to help him get a good college admission. A very good afternoon to one and all. I'm delighted to welcome each one of you to yet another episode of our Futuristic Education web series. These are a web series dedicated to future of education, an Edudevs initiative in collaboration with Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University to enlighten and empower the entire education community in the latest trends which are happening in the education corridors. A city-based web series where we have representatives today of two prominent cities, or I could just say very conveniently, Delhi NCR. Yes, from Gurgaon and from Noida. Here we have our esteemed edu leaders who will deliberate upon today's most pertinent issue and enlighten us about the pros and cons, processes, outcomes, just about everything. I'm Divyani Kapoor, your host and moderator for today. Now, without much ado, I'm really excited to introduce to you our today's esteemed and special panel. Today, we have with us our esteemed panelist, Miss Anuradha Handa, Principal, GD Goenka School, Sector 46, Gurgaon, veteran principal, and am I on air?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you're there.
Veteran, I will again take it up. Today we have with us our esteemed panelist, Miss Anuradha Handa, Principal, GD Goenka School, Gurugram, a veteran principal and an academician. She epitomizes innovation and creativity when we talk about the 21st century progressive education. I often call that her school oozes with energy, innovation, just about implementing all that is the documents, the policies are talking about. We welcome you, Ms. Anuradha Handa, to this episode.
Thank you, Devyani ji. I'm humbled. Thank you.
Let us now welcome Mr. Sudhir Katumala, Head Career Counselor, Directorate of Admissions, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Coimbatore. He has been a regular co-panelist, or rather a co-stage sharer with me on this platform, and I can vouch for it, his insights, his grip on the career aspect of today's career developments epitomizes and is of par excellence. Welcome, Mr. Sudhir Katumala.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And start to everybody. I hope we'll have a fruitful discussion regarding this.
I'm sure. And we have with us Miss Nitina Dua, who is Head Career Guidance Center of Shivnadar School, Noida. Again, an extremely veteran and seasoned counselor. Welcome, Nitina. And we have with us Miss Ruchika Bhardwaj, who is a counselor and heads School of Psychology, Sun City School, Gurgaon. We welcome you, Ms. Ruchika Bhardwaj.
Thank you so much. Honored. Thank you. Honored to be here. Pleasure is all mine.
We are humble. Continuing with our tradition created in our recent webinars, we have with us a special youth panelist. Yes, our student element of the web series. We have with us Riya Vasan, a class 11th student of DAV Public School, Sector 49, Gurugram. She has been an ex-edu intern. Welcome, Ria, to this show.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now, without much ado and not taking too much of stage time, let me quickly talk about and get on to the ice-breaking question. This question is the same question which will be addressed to all our panelists, and I suggest refrain to 2 minutes time limit when you answer it, because we have a long list of queries and discussions which are soon to follow. So the question I would suggest you would be answering in the sequence in which you were introduced. So first, Mrs. Anuradha Handa, followed by Mr. Sudhir Katumala, then Ms. Nitina Dua, and then Ms. Ruchika Bhardwaj. So straight on, my question is, we've been talking about this profile building, student profile. Suddenly this term is assuming a lot of importance, but then there are schools, there are students, there are people around in the community who are really not aware about what is student profile. Why is it important to build a student profile? So yes, Anuradha-ji, we start from you.
Yes, thank you, Devyani ji. So, taking 2 minutes and not exceeding it for sure. For me, the student profile is something which puts together the learning journey of the child. It is all about what the student has achieved, what the student's interests are, all their accomplishments, what they wish to do. So student profile is very, very important because you can reflect upon it, you can look at it, you can learn from it, and it helps you discover yourself. So through that identification and discovery is when the student would get to know the direction. It gives you a roadmap. So it's not something that we have to look at only when the children are moving out of school, or it is a requirement for admission itself. I would say the profile of the student is something which defines a student. So that's my understanding and significance of the student profile, so to say.
Great, thank you so much, Ms. Anuradha. Bang on, you said that it's a learning journey. It begins with the student's identification of his own potential, and then helps him also discover and reinvent and churn himself throughout this journey. I think, thank you so much. Extreme clarity as to the first, what is a student profile. Moving on to Mr. Sudhir. Yes, Sudhir.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's rightly said by Anuradha, ma'am. So actually, a student profile, usually what actually happens in school is the profiling most of the time will happen based on their academic scores. Okay, even I was into that category when I was studying. I was in a fast track batch where because of my marks, so they profiled me, they took me to a different room, they gave us different insights about topics and all. So the profiling should not be entirely based on academics. That's what Anuradha ma'am said exactly. It should be based on his other interest, his career interest, or his extracurricular activities, what he's doing is based on his hobbies and based on his entrepreneurial skills or creativity skills. So based on this, if we can profile, because for example, usually if we are suggesting a career to a particular student, what we exactly do is based on his academic score, science score, we will say, yeah, you are right for engineering. You are getting good grades in science and maths. So you can right away go for engineering. Here we are profiling the student who can be suited for a career entirely based on marks. But there are more to become a successful engineer than just marks. You see, the toppers which we see today, for example, take a social media personality. I know all of you know about that person, APJ Abdul Kalam. If you take him, how many of you can identify him as an engineer? So a lot of people will look at his work, not his academic profiles. So his profile, when we are explaining, nobody will say, first of all, he's an engineer. Everybody will say he's this kind of philanthropist, this kind of achievements he has. So coming to the student's perspective, so this profiling should be based on lot more factors which should be identified by the schools in those early years. Okay, so that's how it can be developed going forward from 6th standard or 7th standard. They should identify these categories, not only the academic, extracurricular activities, hobbies, skills, interests, and all these categories. The profiling should happen, and school plays a huge role in that regard. So that's what my answer is.
Great. Thank you so much, Sudhir. And building on from here and moving on to Nitina. Nitina, both Sudhir and Anuradha has talked about, going beyond your academic performance, because that's where you identify extracurricular and other things, and that will help. So how the student profile, which we are talking about, how would it provide a window? Is it, because at one point of time, we're talking about extracurricular. We are also talking about, the academic performance. So how would this fit into what Sudhir sir and Anuradha ji has just said?
Thank you, Devyani ma'am, and very, very valid points and different perspectives, though related, but yet different, shared by Anuradha ma'am and Sudhir sir. Devyani ma'am, I would talk from a college counselor's perspective, because I kind of, deal with thousands of students, and when they're looking at their exit from school, how critical does profile building really matters. But to begin, before I share two major points, which I feel are absolutely important, there is a lot of myths that need to be busted around profile building. A lot of students and parents feel that, it needs to be sports, it needs to be community service, it needs to be, some kind of a research paper. And of course, the stellar academics stays. First, if there are parents and educators listening to me, just dive deeper. It's profile building is a journey from exposure to elimination. That's the first point. That you expose the child to different things, keeping in mind the student's strengths. And that's what school gives you a window and an opportunity towards. And then you eliminate out of that exposure that the student gets into 2 or 3 areas of strength that the student wants to strongly build the profile. And that's where the balance stands to start created. So when you talk about profile, it's exposure to elimination. That's the first point. And the second, it should cover a window of these quotients that we talk about. So keeping the snapshot in mind, it needs to cover the intelligence quotient, the cultural quotient, the social quotient, the emotional quotient, and the technological quotient. And all of that integrates into a jigsaw puzzle, beautifully when a student is actually applying to a university. And as we progress in our conversation today, we'll dive deeper into all of this. But don't get too overwhelmed with the word profile. It's beautiful, and it's a student snapshot and student's life journey, the trajectory of his or her own personal and professional growth, and professional and personal experiences made based on extracurriculars and co-curriculars in school and outside the school. So yes, ma'am.
Great. Thank you so much. You brought in a very, very valid thing that and I've actually noted it down, exposure to elimination. And I've also written down and I'll come back to that discussion where you speak about the elements of different quotients should be reflected in a profile. I shall be there. Moving on to Ruchika. Ruchika Bhardwaj, what is it, what you suggest your students when, talking about a profile? What is profile building to you?
Good evening, everybody. As rightly pointed out by Anuradha ma'am, Sudhir sir, and Nitina, that student profile building is, of course, you need to build up a profile. It's not only academics, everything comes under it. When you're giving an application, sending an application to a college, how do I know, sitting at a admissions desk, how do I know who are you? And as rightly pointed out by Sudhisha, there is a lot more to a engineering student. There is a lot more to a doctor. So your overall personality has to come under into profiling of a student, as pointed out by Nitina ma'am as well, that your extracurricular, your co-curricular, everything comes in. It is basically and primarily what we tell our students. School gives you a beautiful window. It's a progress since you started to know yourself. Your school is there with you on this journey, and you progress your whole chart. What I like to do, what I don't like to do. Give yourself a lot of exposure and present something where people can look at it and know who you are. And in that journey, you identify yourself who you are. It is very important for us to understand and know who we are in order to tell anybody what are we looking at, what are my strengths and what are my interest areas, and what am I looking at in overall my personality. Whereas school helps you build up all of this because they're there with you since you were very young. A student is very young, the school is there with you on that journey. So it's about a journey. Profile building is a journey. Who you are, what you do, what you like to do, what are your strengths and everything.
Right. So I think, thank you, Ruchika. You've been talking about, encapsulating all the points which the other three did say. That means definitely the student profile does give an edge and an understanding to the admission counselor that who you are. Thank you so much. We move on to now the next round, where we address one aspect of today's discussion to one particular panelist. And I move on to Ms. Anuradha Handa. So, Anuradha-ji, I remember the first time I ever heard about, this e-profile portfolio. That was actually, I heard it from you. I think it was way back about 3.5 years or 4 years back. Now, what is the difference between these terms as student profile and student portfolio? And the other thing is, because I know your school is working on this very rigorously, which class the students should start building onto them? When should they wake up? As you, I think, Nitina or just said, that it's not about the last leg of your school journey, that in class 12, second semester, you wake up and want to take those LORs, and now it has gone much beyond. So we would like to hear out that what is the difference, and how have your school been doing this?
Sure. So I think while you put forward two things. One is the difference between a profile and a portfolio. And I think profile, we've got such beautiful definitions from our esteemed panelist here. Very, very catchy phrases, so to say, which we just keep in mind, and that in itself is so inspiring. So, but one, being a physics person, so the thing that comes to my mind here is, when we talk about profile, it's a very multi-dimensional thing. It's something which is required to capture each dimension of the individual. And we as humans are all multi-dimensional, whether it is about my competencies, my abilities, my likes, my dislikes, something, who am I? Discovering that. Now that is something, and then of course, first you discover, and then obviously people sitting on that table connect you, map you with the right kind of a course and a profession, so that when you lead your life, every day that you are leading, and the workplace that you are at is yours. It's not that you are at work, you are at a place that you love, so that your best comes out. Now, something that defines that is your profile. That's how we would, I as an educator would like my, the students and the parents to understand that this is the importance of profile, the journey of self-discovery. Portfolio is something that, when you are profiling a person, so there are certain achievements of a child. There is an outstanding work that the child does in a certain field. So that, when you put together, that becomes the portfolio for that student. So portfolio is a part of the profile, but is not the profile, because the other aspects of the personality will be completely captured in the profile. But an outstanding work or my achievements, when I want to put it together and showcase and take pride in, is something which becomes my portfolio. So yes, as a school, we've always felt and believed that the education, the schooling experience and the journey of a child has to be a very, the children should be intrinsically driven to what they want to do. And where does that intrinsic motivation come from? Again, it comes from you discovering yourself, you discovering your interest. I'm sure, what you like to do, if you're asked to do it, you can do it all your life and never feel tired. I mean, I see you there, Devyani ji, you yourself being everywhere, because you're where you love to be, and that's what I feel that 33 years I have completed in the field of education, and I just love doing what I'm doing. That's because my profile matches with the work that I am doing. Though there was no profiling that was done when I was younger, I had to go to school. I had to choose my career. So if we talk of a particular age for that, well, I think at every age, we have to allow children to engage with things and then gradually help them to, it's a funnel effect that you start eliminating. So in our school, the process that we follow, that initial years are the years where we give exposure to the children, the foundational stage, where they're exposed to everything that they do. However, there are a number of teachers who are taking observations about every child, how they are doing academically, in which activity are they most inclined, where does their interest lie, then develop the skills of the children. Classes 3, 4, and 5, as we call those, as the preparatory years, and that's what NEP has called it as, because that's the skill building time. Now from class 6, we start a little bit of that funneling effect where they start choosing, are they most inclined towards, which form of music are they inclined towards, out of art, dance, and theater, what do they want to pursue, which sport that they want to pursue. Now from here, that listing is happening. Only thing is we need to start documenting it. And definitely as they move from middle to the senior, the secondary years, that is class 9, all of this has to be formally done, documented in a way that, it is easy for the children to reflect upon it. And that's why we, in our school, if we talk of in particular, we have this program which we introduce in grade 9, which we call as I Discover Me. And through that program, what we are emphasizing on is not only developing the skills of the children, but alongside helping children reflect upon the experiences that they have by way of sessions being taken by experts, their peers, their mentors, their counselors, etc. And there are reflection sheets that they fill. And then through this journey, and finally through the psychometric assessment, is when they are able to make their choices. So profile, there, the starting age, like I said, it is as early as maybe class 3 or even earlier. I mean, as part of, and when we were going through the pandemic period and everything was so digital, that's the time we actually, right from nursery, KG, we encourage our children to put things so that they can see, because we were all looking for that happiness and satisfaction. So the most pleasurable experience for children was to see their own work on the computer. So for me, it can be at any stage, but for sure, when they enter the middle wing, that is class 6 upwards, we must structure it and make it a very firm document. I mean, a clear documentation from grade 9 for sure.
I think that was such a revelation and so clearly put up. I'm sure our participants would have had now a very clear, because I was very confused about, and thank you so much, that profile, if I understand, is your reflection of what you stand for, your personality. And portfolio is when you put in it in, what are the activities or what are the areas where you, put yourself in your extracurricular, co-curricular activities. And really, I mean, this whole process can start from the foundational stage, identifying the child. At that time, he starts identifying, and probably by the time the child reaches class 6, it is little more solidified and more funneled up, as Ms. Anuradha said, and the documentation should start effectively from class 9. Thank you so much, Anuradha ji, and we shall be back to take more of your valued, experience and insights on this topic. Meanwhile, I would like to ask, we have a student, Ria. Ria, what do you think? Do you have a profile? And, what is it that is, I give you a checklist, and if you've been hearing all the discussion, do you think you have a profile? Are there certain ticks that you can put on your checklist?
Well, yes, definitely. There are some things that I have done and some things that I might have not done through the whole process. What I realized from the discussion is, as ma'am said, exposure, then elimination, exposure to elimination, right? So now I am at a stage where I have had exposure to a lot of things. I've engrossed myself in a lot of co-curricular activities, but I find myself unable to, eliminate them, to shortlist them. I cannot categorize which one I prefer over the other. I think this is something I'm struggling with.
Great. So we've noted your query. So, but yeah, you did have a lot of exposure, and now you are stuck at the elimination process. Thank you so much, Ria. So moving on to Nitina, and you could take up from probably Ria's, I changed the sequence and came to you because you spoke about exposure and elimination, and you could address her query as well. Nitina, why do colleges do student profiling, first thing? And and really, do they do it as well? Because it's all about the JEET results, the NEET results, the CUET and other results. Where does it come? And we are talking about profiling. Do Indian universities somewhere take it into consideration, or is it only for those students who choose to move out? And then what are the parameters are the most important in selecting an ideal candidate from college perspective? So like to students, you tell them that, these are the 4 things you need to keep in mind so that the college looks at your profile or whatever. Yes, Nitina, you could please start with answering Ria's question.
Absolutely, Ria. That's a very, very common question, but I'm very happy that you've been on the journey of exposure. Many a child, it's like I always tell my children, they're looking at, their horse with blinkers who are taking the JEE and the NEET examinations. They're not doing anything and just looking at this. But I'm happy that you're already navigating and trying. It's just a very simple answer to that question, Ria. And if I could help you there, and is like, there's a term in education and, with all the co-panelists and such erudites, on this, there's something called backward integration that we talk about largely in a very, very big way. You're in grade 11, Ria, am I correct? Okay. So you should now be picking and making a grid of your college. Okay, that these are the set of universities, my dream, target, and safe colleges that I want to get into, which talks about course, college, and country. And based on that, do a backward integration to say that what are the requisites that need to be there for each of those universities. And it could be a mix of both Indian and foreign universities. And you'll be able to clearly eliminate, because universities, if you think you're smart, and if you think counselors are smarter, admission officers are out there absolutely brilliant. They can see, who's done a quick work and who's dive deeper into what their areas of interest is. So dive deeper into what you wish to pursue, and let the admission officers see that you've exercised choices willingly to dive deeper into an area that deeply interested you. Okay, that's the first thing. And second, do the backward integration and you'll be able to make that elimination. I hope I was able to help you. There's a huge conversation that can happen around that. Coming back to ma'am's question, and that's a very interesting, ma'am. The world is going test optional and India decides to go the CUET way, which is great. But having said that, I'm very happy to share that all the private spaces, and all the private universities in the country are looking at profiles extensively, and the fact is that because last 2 years being online and the students landing into a complete board year and going in for universities, a lot of the universities are changing the way they're looking at their application process and bringing in profile in a very big way. Having said that, you need to be very, very clear and focused with couple of things when you're building your profile. One is no matter whichever career counselor or whatever, your academics have to be good. If you're racing or trying to get into a good university, that's very, very important, because universities also look at it, a student coming in not as a liability, but someone who can join at point A and go to point B. So that's very important. Second is universities appreciate people who can bring in diversity on their campus. And when you talk about diversity element on campus, they also look at the kind of engagements or the kind of conversations that can stimulate a class of say 50 or 60 students in a particular course. And that experience can only happen if the child's given or made some choices that have given him an experience to engage in some meaningful conversations, which could stimulate the child's mind, and the stimulation can come onto campus. And that's also true for our Delhi University now with its changing landscape there, and I'm happy it's changing. Third is, when I talk about quotients, pick up 2 or 3 quotients. Not everybody will have a technology quotient, right? Someone can be very bad at technology, but really great at writing, okay? I'm just giving an example. So try to see in those quotients, what is the 1 or 2 that you wish to eliminate and what are the ones you want to dive deeper into, and figure out engagements. And so that you can organically have an evolution journey into that particular domain. So I think if you keep those things in mind, you'll be able to strongly build. And another thing is be comfortable in your own skin. And there's no better beauty than that. And anybody, and with Chat GPT, I hope, Ria, your generation is aware, you all are, acing in a space of Chat GPT where I don't know if it will ever click the plagiarism software of saying that everything Chat GPT can answer. And every time you ask Chat GPT a question, it gives you different answers. So with that space in the higher education space, college counselors are at work, and you also have a lot of work to do. I hope, Devyani ma'am, I was able to answer your question.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think you very well answered as to what are the 2-3 things, as you say, the quotients you need to work and how you need to work, build upon those quotients. And that is what make your candidature stand out from the other. So moving on to Ruchika. Yes, Ms. Ruchika Bhardwaj, I mean, my question to you is, now, is it possible for schools to offer courses and curricula that prepares student for a college level work? Because schools are often so tied up with, most of the time finishing the syllabus and the logistics that go around it, the demands of the CBSE. So though they are very wrapped up in that, and can they ensure that students understand what constitutes a college-ready curriculum? And probably we could, as Ms. Anuradha Handa said, that if the profile building has to start, documentation should start from 9. So maybe to a 9th grader, 11th grader, what is it that you would like to convey?
So absolutely, ma'am, as Anuradha ma'am also said, that documentation has to start from grade 9th. And yes, although schools are quite wrapped up in any kind of curriculum with their syllabus completion and making students understand, and everything. But above all, we at Sansari try to give them the exposure of various different things. We have a mentor-mentee program where the children, the students, select their mentors, and they sit with their mentors regularly to understand their profile building, to understand what are their likes, what are their dislikes, what are their strengths, everything. And then of course we do have MUNs and exposure to career fairs, university fairs. It's not constricted to only children in grade 11th that we offer. We consciously make an effort to talk about universities, different universities, foreign universities as well as Indian universities, to our 9th graders especially, so they can understand their strengths, so that they can understand that what is it that I like to do, what is it that I am, what is it that I want to do. Bringing parents and students on the same page, because I have seen often that parents and students are not on the same page, whether it's on university, talk about university, whether it is about courses. I mean, I'm talking about very practical kind of problems that comes to us. So we do organize exposure for parents as well, so that they also understand what are we looking at in terms of when the student wants to opt for a particular course, or when the student wants to opt, the interest area is a specific field. So is it the only field, as Nitin ma'am talked about, that are we looking at like blinders, that this is the only field I want to go in, or am I exposed to a lot of things? Am I exploring a lot of things? So we do give them that exposure along with their studies. We even try to teach them out of the classroom, so that they can observe the other things that are involved in the curriculum, and along with the curriculum they can understand and establish that there is a cause and effect relationship, and to ultimately comes down to their strengths, so that from grade 9 they start understanding their strengths, and we are not sitting at a boiling pot at the end of that, oh my god, now what do I do? I have not done enough work for my profile building, wish I could have started at an earlier time. So we give them that exposure from grade 9 for sure.
Right, rightly said that, the exposure has to begin from grade 9 onwards. Thank you so much, Ruchika. Moving on to Sudhir. Sudhir, I was just hearing all these discussions, and I'm quite tempted to ask, before I ask you this question, that somewhere national education policy is talking about it talks about a lot of flexibility of curriculum, flexibility of choice and all that. Have we overburdened our students? So is it kind of, in guise, coming in guise, and, probably doing more good, doing harm than more good, because there is so much it talks about and so much of flexibility. And in that, schools are not, or board is not reducing on the curriculum or providing that choices to the student. So my question also to you is, schools follow rigorous assessment tools to map students, learning patterns. I wouldn't say now rote learning, because high order thinking HOTS have been integrated, through MCQs and other abilities. Instance, shouldn't they utilize assessment, a continuous assessment pattern throughout the 2 years, so that the students are aware how prepared they are for college, and assist them in overcoming those deficiencies which they are identified on the path? Now, NEP might have given a lot of flexibility, or it would have reduced some chapters, but by and large, the pattern has not changed. We are only introducing one test after the other. So testing has not gone. Essentially, no matter how much profiling, this, that we talk about, we are making them test takers. So
Yeah.
what is your take on that? Like just, yeah.
Yes, ma'am, I understood. So, as a person who went through the competitive world, I can easily relate to that. You know, the lot of, because I cracked JEE, and also I know how much competition it's there and how much hardships a student face. So, today's exams in India are not selection process, they are elimination process. Okay,
Mm.
they are not selecting people. For example, somebody cracked JEE means that means they eliminated the remaining people. Only 20,000 people not selected for JEE. They eliminated the remaining. So it's because of the huge competition we have in our country. We can't deny of not having this big exams or introduced like CUT or JEE. Because of that, we are having a disadvantage because we can't straight away say them don't conduct this JEE. It's creating hardship for students because of the competition we face today. For each seat, how many lakhs of students are fighting for it or to get into that, because they understood the amount of education, the level of standard of education they'll get once they enter into the university. So that's why they are fighting for it. So to reduce this examination culture, it will take decades time. So it's not a single policy or a 1 or 2 years journey can reduce it. It will take decades time. The NEP's agenda is that actually identifying the students' interest and making on that, pushing them to their desired choices is one of the main agenda of NEP. Actually helping them understand, giving them multiple entry, exit options. All these things helps. I mean, this NEP is one of the agenda of this to decrease this competitive culture. And predominantly, what I want to say is today's student is having very less time to reach their peaks. For example, you take this entrepreneurial scenario which we are having, entrepreneurial scenario, the CEOs of good startup companies, the average age is they might be about 25 or below 40 age. Okay, so that means a student who is graduating straight away needs to understand the all the logistics that happens in an entrepreneurial scenario. Does school gives it? Does college education gives it? Where does it start? It cannot be straight away taught to the student in the college. In 4 years of his life, we can't make him an entrepreneur. We can't make him an innovator. That happens in a school life, where from 6th standard onwards, how many entrepreneurial related courses a school is implementing in their curriculum. For example, Ria asked me a question, I couldn't eliminate it. There is a confusion in my mind. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you can easily do it. Okay, so that's the main thing which lacking in current students' mindset. They can't make a decision. They can't decide what an activity does good to them, what an activity does bad to them. That's the main thing current students lacking. I'm not talking about the resources they have pretty good teachers, pretty good curriculum, pretty good infrastructure. They have everything. Only thing they lack is this entrepreneurial mindset, which can be given by our teachers, our schools. This should be implemented. For example, there is a difference also which I can say. A student's mindset who studied in a boarding school is different to a student studied in a day school. There are two different mindsets which you can find, because the student who studied in a boarding school can handle a pressure higher than a day school student. That I can say for sure, because I don't know ma'am will agree or disagree with me, Anuradha ma'am. And also there are lots of things which goes into a boarding school student life, because they know the essence of time, how they must spend their time effectively. A day scholar or a day student who is coming to school might not know that value. They are aligned towards a timetable, spending for each activity how much, and giving equal amount of importance to all the activities that are involved in a day-to-day activity, day-to-day life of a boarding school. But if you go to a day student, they are gone from school at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the evening. We don't know what he does after that. We don't have an idea. They might be going and attending a coaching. They might be doing and doing some other extracurricular activities, which school doesn't have a say in that. Okay, so there are lots of things a school needs to do to bring out their profiles or to help students make their profiles in a better way. So this requires a good amount of guidance and training for the teachers also. I don't know how many schools are effectively doing that in organizing this. Of course, some of the big schools that are there in the panel, they might be doing it because these are one of the premier schools in the country. But not every school can afford to bring their alumni or bring some career personality, interact with the students, because these students can eliminate a decision based on the exposure of the person who is doing that work. For example, if I want to become a doctor, if I go to and ask a doctor his lifestyle, he will say it's a 24-hour work. Then I will understand by his face, by his expression, what he is exactly feeling. Is it really a good career to get into? I'll understand on a face-to-face discussion with the exact doctor what exactly his career is all about, than just understanding about in the internet, right? Just reading some blog. So I suggest schools should do more of these things to eliminate confusions or to help students in building better profiles for their college. It will happen from 6th standard onwards, as Anuradha ma'am said. That's an ideal time actually to understand their interests, understand their alignments towards what exactly they are thinking about their future.
Great. You know, Sri, when you were talking, I was just reminded before I move on to I'll extend this question to Anuradha ma'am. Now, if somebody is born after 50 years, he will, no matter NEP has come, we are in education 4.0, we have experienced hybrid curriculum, we've experienced everything. But still, the functionality of the school, the behavior, lifestyle pattern of the student till 3 o'clock, after 3, going back home, then going to the tuition, he will be surprised that everything around the world has changed except the school structure. So somewhere I feel we're talking about such high ideals about, sometimes we are discussing hybrid learning, we are discussing profile making. Somewhere the school functionality, how the school functions, that also has to, the rigid timetable, one class after the other. When I think my dad was going to school, it was the same timetable, 0 to 8, and when my grandchild will go, probably. So, that are the things. Education 5.0 will give the student a choice whom he wants to study from. So yes, we will be coming up with more webinars on this as well. But at the moment, I think we must rope in Anuradha Handa ma'am, because she is going to give a real clarity on how, this profile on the topic that we're coming, that Anuradha, most of the time I see you, and because yes, we have these conversations, and sometimes I see your routines also, and that you're doing a lot per se as a principal with the students. You're in the same space, whether it is creating some programs or like I Discover Me, or probably Futuristic Fridays, or probably, taking them out. So you're there in that space. The question to you is that students, now that again, you can relate it to profiling or whatever, that students, when they come to school, they have these extracurricular, they have these academic classes, but they are completely unaware about what is the experience they are going to have. One, in the admission, during the admission process, and second is when they are in the college. So if the school bring its alumni on board as mentors to guide students, would be fruitful. And how can a school organize such, or what more can school do? So to prepare, profiling, you've said that all this, how to prepare them for a future life, how to prepare them to handle the challenges and crises once they're out from the cocooned life of the school. Ji ma'am.
Right. So I think it is in continuity with what Mr. Sudhir was talking about. And I'm happy to share that, this again, all you need to do is create a program and create a provision for that program to run and have these elements included in that program. And for us, again, through the I Discover Me program, where we've always kept that, we dedicate 1 period in a week to this program, and there's a curriculum and there's a structure that we've developed. And a very integral part of that structure is to have people come and speak to children about their experience. So whether it is a parent in a particular profession coming and talking to the children about the life in their profession. Because I totally relate to what you said, Mr. Sudhir, that as a doctor, what my life is like. I always, feel that if a student is wanting to be in hospitality industry by being on the other side of the table being served, without realizing what it is to serve and be served, there is so much difference. So unless those experiences are shared with the children, they will never be able to make the right decision, because the life is very different on both sides of the table. And I can't have my takeaways by just being at, the receiving end, not at the giving end. So definitely, and then it's not just a talk that you have to have. So we have, I have created this booklet for I Discover Me, where we have these reflection sheets, which the children fill, which have very simple questions with regard to, what I feel when I hear this. Do I feel connected with what is being said? So those are the kind of things. And definitely, children connect the best with their own age group. So when you talk of alumni association, in this regard, is the best possible exposure and experience that we can give to our current lot of children. Because they have seen them grow, they have a lot of respect for their seniors, and they always want to be like them. We've always emulated and wanted to be like our seniors. So when they've moved to good colleges, universities, and they've lived that life. So when we create a provision and there's a structure to it, because you see, to bring alumni, it cannot be a random process. There has to be a program that you have to design. There has to be an objective of the program that you have to have, so that accordingly you can call. And I have seen the kind of enthusiasm that the students show when the alumni come and share their experiences, how they got into college, how the decision that they made. And sometimes, they've also come and shared that what, maybe their decision went wrong, how they corrected that. So those things for sure are very, very valuable for the current lot. And it's not just alumni. We also do these sessions by our own, the school seniors who are still in school, grade 9 being addressed by grade 11 or 10th being addressed by 11th students, because they will give them an insight into how to make the right choice. What are the things, those little details? And maybe as a principal, when I'm giving them that detail, they may not pay attention to that. But when their peers, their seniors are giving them those details, they definitely pay a lot of attention to that. Doing sessions with, we have some national, international level players. What is the life of, we had done that one very interesting session. So we have this, tennis player who's ranked internationally. So she, along with her father, a skater, along with the father. So what is it that the parents do in their life? What is it that the children do? What do they have to forego? What is it that they give up on in leading that kind of a life? We've had the same class students, because if you talk of entrepreneurship, we've just had a student who's developed the chatbot for his father's company and has now got a contract from other companies. So he took a session with others, and that's inspiring. So this is, not only does this give clarity, but I feel it is inspirational to involve students as mentors and guides and real life experience sharing. There is nothing more important than experience sharing. And I truly believe that, something that you can always rely on is your own gut feeling. When somebody gives me a life experience, I either feel great about it, or I just want to close my eyes and move away. And I want my children to rely on that particular feeling and experience and fill it up in the reflection sheet, so that, they can take ownership of the decision that they take. Along with that, of course, giving them all the information about the options, the opportunities, the experiences, all of that put together is what will build the profile of a child and will help them take the right decision. So for me, as a principal, I've always said, if we are falling short of time, I am ready to forego a math period, but don't cut down on my I discover me. Because what I'm doing, the studies and the 14 years of education that are there, what am I going to do with that education? And padhai is something the children should know. That's more important. So that's
So,
I hope I've answered your question, Devyani.
As you said that, yes, of course, and you managed to answer it so well that in my chat box, I have somebody asking you actually, ma'am, could you please share the format of the reflection sheet? So how, you've been speaking about those reflections that students do. If you could very briefly just tell them what all, or probably show them. You're on mute.
I said, I incidentally have this lying on my table, my booklet of I Discover Me that we've designed. So this logo also, we had done a competition in our school and we had asked the students to design logos. And we said, whichever logo is, judged to be the best will be the logo. And this is the kind of reflection sheet that we've created with very simple questions. What appeals to me most about this career? Qualities that, are required to pursue this career. So all these simple questions which we feel, which will not be burdensome for the children and they would love to answer them, is what we have in the reflection sheet.
Great. So, you've shown once and the audience is asking, could you, but please, I would request you to share 1 or 2 sheets with us so that we could mail to the request from our audience. All right, moving on to Ruchika, just very simple question before I hand over this discussion to Ria, and very briefly, I would like you to answer this. What skills should the student inculcate to develop for tolerance, for ambiguity in their future professional lives? Because there is a lot of ambiguity. We teach them something, they experience something else. So just very briefly, we've done profile building, we've built the profiles and all that, but then the reality sometimes is not the same. So what is it that you would have to say? Yeah.
So ambiguity tolerance is a very fancy term for operating in the gray. I mean, life is not always black and white. There is a lot of gray in our lives. And as you rightly said, we learn something, but when it comes to your, experiencing it, it's completely different. And 2 years of pandemic have taught us that one needs to really, upmarket ourselves and reflect on the ability to accept the unclear, to accept the uncertain, to bring into novel ideas into situations. So basically, it's a very quick solution-oriented space. Instead of going to a problem that, oh, I have been taught by the teacher ABC, how do I apply it? Let me think of a solution-oriented perspective. I know I have the knowledge. How do I apply this knowledge to come out of a particular situation? My willingness to take up new tasks, my me being comfortable first with my own self, and then I'll be able to, feel comfortable in a situation that I put in. So we teach them a lot of resilience. We teach them to look from a third party perspective. If I am put in a situation, I feel I am right, and the other person feels that he or she is right. I mean, and both of us can be right from our own perspectives, and we can fight and argue to eternity. But the minute I turn my side, the minute I come and see from your perspective, or from a third party perspective, that, oh, all right, this situation might be viewed into something else. So let me have a third party perspective. Let me come out of this situation and transport myself to a different space and see what and why, who's right, who's wrong. Let's not discuss and go into who's right and who's wrong. Let me come up to a solution oriented strategy that I don't have this. How do I make this work? And, embrace the complexity, embrace the inevitable. And above all, it is very, very important to stay calm. If I'm calm, I can overcome anything in the world, anything in the world.
Thank you so much.
If I am agitated, I've lost the game. So being calm is the key.
All right, thank you so much. I think our students would have got the understanding, and COVID has taught its own lessons. Now, Ria, now I hand over the stage to you, and I would like you to address your queries on behalf of the student fraternity to our panelists. Yes, Ria.
So first of all, I would like to thank you for having me here. It was a wonderful session. All the opinions that I heard made a lot of change. So my question is that there are a lot of courses that are academically hard and helpful for us. They help us not only profile building, but also in portfolio building and everything, and help us get to good colleges. So what are some of these courses that I could enroll myself into?
Your question is to?
Anyone?
So maybe Sudhir or Nitina, this is a very, yeah. Sudhir, if you could answer this from giving her a college perspective.
Yes. So
Yes, ma'am. If she's talking about Indian college perspective, unfortunately, lot of Indian premier institutes are not looking at the profiles. But if you're talking about the foreign university perspective, so the main course or academic credibility of you matters the most. That's the first thing which they will look. Okay, in the subject they will look if you are applying for the foreign university is dependent on the course you are choosing. Okay, for example, if you are choosing a literature oriented course, they will identify English as the main criteria to shortlist. So likewise, based on the course you are taking, they will identify, I mean, for example, if you're choosing an engineering course in a foreign university, they will try to identify the academic scores of the particular physics, chemistry, or maths. Likewise, so based on the course only, they will highlight these courses which are important for them. So, but what in your profile, academic report is one of the important, I think 20 to 30% of foreign universities give priority to academic interests also. But apart from that, there should be a holistic approach. So main thing you need to have is how many internships you did until now, any internship, any work you did, any hands-on experience you have. No.
Yes, Ria. Yes, Ria. You should tell him which internship did you did.
Any
And
hands-on
what was the
experience you
hands-on
worked on, any
experience?
project,
Please.
any hands-on experience.
well, I got the opportunity to be an Edudevs intern only last year. I was an intern with them through the summer, June. It was a great experience. I got to learn how offices work and the working experience and everything. In fact, there's this also little project of mine I've been working on, book exchange. I've started it in my own society, wherein we've been exchanging books and we've reached up to like 5,000 books we have exchanged.
And
Yeah,
also
that's
there's
it.
another project that in this internship she will be taking up. She curated podcasts, and that is EduTalkies. So that
Yes,
was,
yes.
she was,
So
yeah.
this is what is required. See, for example, academic scores you take, each and every student, if they are coming from a premier school, maximum 5 to 10% difference will be there. If a university thought about, okay, above 80%, let's look at all their profiles, how you can distinguish with your peer, with your friend who is having the same score, is based on these other things, the projects you did, the internships you did. So, or the social media presence. Some universities are looking at that also now because they can showcase their university that you joined there and all. So, how much social media presence you have and what kind of service you did, either it's a community service or something, or what kind of hobbies you have. So, these things matters the most today when you want to get into your desired university in abroad. Okay, apart from the academics is just the starting point, just to shortlist you. Okay, we can just look at people are having about this thing, but after that, what you can showcase your skills and abilities will make you get that opportunity to get into that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Sudhir sir. Yes, Ria, any other query that you have?
No, ma'am, not really. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Ria, for, representing the student community and taking their perspectives to our panelists. Let me just very quickly see if we have any questions from the audience. Any question, any audio participant who would want to ask any question to our panelists, may please let us know, and we shall, apart from the fact that yes, reflection sheet, we will share a sample with you, but any other query that you have with any of our panelists, please feel free, put it in the chat box, and we shall unmute you. So we have Miss Shweta Sachdeva. All right. I think we can address this pertaining to Shweta Sachdeva. Can you unmute Ms. Shweta Sachdeva? What kind of session to be conducted for the parents? But that is completely another field. And I think if Nitina, you could share very briefly answer this question.
A session that needs to be conducted for parents and which we do on campus is busting the myths. That's one session we conduct with our parents. Why? Because parents sometimes mostly want to fulfill their aspirations through their children. And they do not want to, there's something called a shift in the mindset that needs to happen, and the shift in the lens of how they view things. And also why it's just not a STEM approach, it's a STEAM approach. Why humanities is not taken up by students who can't perform well. Some erudite children also land up taking humanities. So that's one session that's absolutely important. The second is session that we do is we also try to put our parents into to become admission officers, and tell them that, these are the different profiles of children, and according to you, where should this child be admitted? Because sometimes what happens is the child thinks that my parent thinks my child knows it all. And why isn't the child making to A, B, C universities that he or she thinks of? But when you see what truly an admission officer looks at and what the child has actually done and how does it match or does not match, gives a reality check to the parents. That's another thing that we do. And also there is a series of, school to university. There's a lot of gap. No matter what we say, we say that our students are ready to embrace college, and from college, they're ready to embrace the world of work. We say it, but experiencing it is very, very different. So it's very important for parents to understand that there is something called a school to college, college to work. So parents who are HR professionals, parents who know the field of work. So we try to tell them what kind of skills are needed in the world of tomorrow. This generation is going to make a shift of 7 careers, not 7 jobs. So when you make a shift of 7 careers, probably what you'll study at the undergrad might not be remotely close to what you want to do later in life. So these are the kind of sessions we do, and also it's important for parents to be relaxed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nitina. It was greatly very helpful for me. I attended your session on IC3 meeting as well.
Okay.
At Shivnadar.
Oh, acha, at SNU. All right.
Thank you so much,
ma'am.
Yeah. So I think that gives us also another insight that we will call Nitina once again when we do our parent counseling sessions. Thank you so much. Now, as we come to the end of the program, the show, as it's already 5:15, I would like each of our panelists to give us today's resting statements for about a statement of about 2 minutes. What would you want to convey to the participants, to the audience, about how the students need to build a profile, or how a profile would be helpful, or probably the profile is not important? Whatever your take has been from the session. Thank you so much. We begin from Ms. Anuradha Handa.
So I think for me, the session has been very insightful because there are so many other dimensions that I have got to know from the experts here. And my take on profile would be that, yes, profile is very, very important, but it is important for, the people who are associated with the child to value that profile and use that profile. Because while I'm very passionate about making sure that our children get to do what they want to do, but that kind of a support has to come from the parents, from the society, to help the children go on that path. So I would just like to put forward this point that, let the children do what they are best at. Only then will they become the best version of themselves.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Anuradha. I'm sure this would be extremely an important, insight, an important, would say, mindset for the parents to dwell upon. We move on to, yes, Mr. Sudhir, what is your resting statement for today's
Yes, the main thing today's current students should do is to take the initiative. Not everybody will be lucky to have a mentor or a principal like Anuradha ma'am. So where she is doing a lot in helping her school students, but a student's best years of their life or shaping how they can shape themselves in the coming years, in the future, will happen from the 6th standard to the 12th standard, which are the school years, predominantly important school years. There, not everybody will get the luxury of getting the advice or push from others. So first, try to understand, you need to take the initiative to build yourself. Nobody is going to come and teach you or help you in that regard. If you take the initiative in exploring things, in understanding things, in improving yourself, of course, you can build an excellent profile for yourself. So take the initiative by yourself, then seek the help, seek the guidance, everything will be proper.
Great. Thank you so much, Sudhir, for again, highlighting that how important it is for the child to take that first step. Yes, Nitina.
I'm a strong believer of the C's, critical thinking, communication, but there's a college counselor that I have added, and I would leave it as a resting note. There's something called capability versus copability. A school will make you capable, but your coping mechanisms is something that you have to identify yourself with. So keep, for parents, if they want to be on a journey with their own children, they need to work on the students' coping elements, thinking about sending them abroad. But if they have to stay there in a basement, and if the basement catches fire, do they know how to save themselves? Are they aware about financial literacy? So copability is huge. So capability versus copability is my resting statement.
Great. Thank you so much, Nitina. As always, I think I've noted down most of these phrases, and they are really very, very insightful. Thank you so much, Nitina. Yes, Ruchika, what is it that that your resting statement would be?
So as with all the students, I have also taken a lot of insight and enlightenment from this session. I will just say that enlighten yourself, be willing to work, and stay calm.
Great. Yes,
it will fall into place. Just be willing to work towards the betterment.
Great. Thank you so much. And for me, I would just say that when you're working on building your profile, add a few elements of being agile, adaptive, problem solver, critical thinker, be resilient. So these are some of the elements you add on when you're working on your journey to build your profile, so that you get a profile which becomes not just your portfolio, but it becomes your whole life persona. Thank you so much. With this, we shall take your leave. And today's session was extremely insightful. And I think I predicted it right in the beginning, with that kind of an intellectual pool of academicians on this platform and the kind of comments we had. They were actually commendable. Thank you so much, but please don't leave before you see an AV of our upcoming initiatives. Thank you so much, Ms. Anuradha Handa, for sparing this time out. I can imagine that how busy you are at this point of time, and still you spared so much of time for Edudevs. We are truly, truly grateful to you. Sudhir, thank you so much. Anyways, your thank you will be less because Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham and Edudevs are collaborators. And thank you so much, Nitina. We will have more sessions with you. And again, Ruchika, this was the first time you came on our panel. We really loved your insights and your thought process. We shall have you again. Thank you so much. Can I have the Edudev team play the AV, please? Please stop sharing the screen. Thank you so much, all our panelists, for being on this show. Thank you so much, Anuradha ji. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nitina. Thank you, Ruchika.